Hey, Dennis Mattern with The Complete Advisor. So glad you're here with me. Today's episode, very special and multi-layered. Here's what I mean by that. First off, we are going to dive into dinner seminars. And we've had this conversation on the podcast before, but I am always fascinated, and I think you are too, exactly how somebody does it. Well, we're going to add a layer to that. So first we're going to have a conversation on how this advisor team, keyword team, does their dinner seminar. And I mentioned team, I find it fascinating because they share speaking. So we're going to walk through exactly how they do that. Now, to add another wrinkle onto this conversation, so first we've got dinner seminars, now we've got a team doing them. Well, heck, let's make it a father and daughter team. How do they handle that dynamic? How does the crowd respond to it? We're going to explore that. Let's roll the tape. There's a lot of conversation around dinner seminars. Is it worth it to feed the people? There's that awful term that I don't like that plate blankers. I don't know. I don't like that one. It seems so negative. But so you've got that conversation, and then you have the conversation around how are you doing it specifically, and not just from a 20,000 foot view, but let's talk about how you do it. And when I say you, and if you're listening, I'm doing a double point. Because I have Mike and Gracie Gann on. And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But what's fascinating is I'm always fascinated about having a conversation about how successful advisors are doing something. But you're doing this different than other advisors. And here's why I say that is, one, you're doing your seminars together as a team. Now, you don't see that, I don't know, hardly ever, like where two advisors are presenting at one seminar. Usually folks will keep it just to one. But then you throw in, you guys decide like, okay, not only do we have to do the choreography around that, and we're successful at that, the dynamic of two people speaking, the handoff, the choreography, I just find that fascinating. But then you decide to up it a notch and make it a father-daughter team with all the dynamics that go into that. So that's what we're going to dive into on this episode. Let's just start right off the bat. So Advantage Retirement, you guys are down in Southwest Missouri.
Springfield,
Missouri. And so, Mike, you've been doing this for, let's get your bona fides out there.
23 years now. Started out in Little Rock, and then we transitioned to closer to family in Springfield, Missouri. And then in the last few years, what now is 3.5 years, Gracie has gotten involved and directly involved in the business. So, yeah.
Nice. Gracie, so a couple years into let's introduce you.
Yes. Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, so I am, this is my third year, and it's been quite the transition. This wasn't really what I thought I would be doing for my career looking forward, but it was kind of a spur of the moment decision to kind of come on board with him and do something completely different from what I was doing priorly, and it's worked out well. We have our days where you question it, but overall it's been really good, and it's been a good fit and very fulfilling. Okay, so for anybody listening, you just met these two wonderful people, and you're thinking like, okay, well, why should I be listening to them? Well, here's why you should be listening to the two of them. They are both $1 Million Round Table qualifiers, that's pretty dang impressive. And it's even more impressive when you start looking at how many $1 Million roundtables you've qualified for. And it's not one, it's not two. We actually have to start getting into the double digits, and I think we're almost pushing 20 years in a row.
21, yeah.
Whoa, 21,
yeah.
Okay.
But who's counting?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was counting, but we need to update your website. I think it says 19. I was doing my homework.
Yeah, we probably do need to update it.
Got to put.
But there were a couple of years that a health year and then a transition year that we didn't qualify, if you will, for the $1 Million Roundtable. But yeah.
So before we dive into how you do seminars, I want to explore just a couple things about the dynamic with the two of you. And how do you balance because I worked for my dad, and I know we didn't balance it at all. So how do you balance the professional relationship and the father-daughter relationship? Or are you still figuring that out?
I'll let you start with that. But it's a daily process.
Yeah,
yes.
I feel like that's a hard question to answer. We are both very A-type, to put it lightly, and are very passionate about how we want things to be in the business and what we want it to look like. And sometimes that complements each other nicely, and sometimes it does not. But the passion is there. But yeah, sometimes we do have our days where we're not a great duo and we're not a great father-daughter team, but we move through it because again we both have the same goal of creating a stronger and better business and hopefully complementing each other more along the way.
And with the age difference, I think that the biggest hurdle or the thing that I've learned is that with my age, I have all this history in the business, and so I base all my decisions in the future on the things I've learned in the past. And as a more mature person, I want to move in slower paces as we go forward. Whereas with someone young, technology drives them, where paper file folders in our office before was all we needed, And but a younger person isn't hindered by, I saw this in years past or I experienced this in years past. And so sometimes it feels like we have to kind of put the brakes on a little bit, but recognizing that that drive and creating some pace in growth, accelerated pace in growth, is a good thing, So
That's a good,
so I have to recognize that. I still have to keep things in check, and I am a little old school, but it's all good. It's all good stuff.
It is. You have this different perspective of the way things were, and then I remind myself of this because I get to work with our marketing department. We have a lot of people that are a lot younger than me.
Sure.
And so there's that challenge of, wait, this is the way you just got to be so careful. This is the way we've always done it, and it's like this is the way, the new way, but there's that blending. So how do you resolve those? How do you resolve those when you guys are bumping heads on something? Flip a coin?
Probably not as smoothly as you'd like for me.
I would call it irritating persistency.
Yeah.
But I mean, no.
That's a good
Love
thing.
some persistency.
No, truthfully.
But yeah, I think that's a great way to put it is he's been doing this for so long that he has his system. And I think I'm able to look at it with some fresher eyes and be able to understand technology a little bit better and how that can create some more efficiency.
Yeah.
And so that is hard to kind of take what he's done for so long and tell him we need to do it differently. But that is why I'm here, and that is the role for growing the business. But sometimes it can take just that persistency of keeping those conversations going and keep pushing that until we finally move through it.
Anybody in any business wants their business or their practice to grow, but we all have limitations. I mean, we have our strengths and our weaknesses, and Gracie can do things with the business that I've never been able to do, and recognizing that, I naturally want to control the pace, but that control of pace isn't, as we transition to things, isn't always the smartest thing. In other words, you don't have to go through all the learning curves and the ups and downs of the business to grow your practice. And so I have to remind myself of that from time to time. She doesn't need to necessarily experience, things that took place in 2008 and 2016 in the business.
1998.
There you go. Yes,
it was a different century.
That's exactly right.
Different time. You know what? Kudos to you guys. Kudos to you guys, because I would imagine that you probably drive each other nuts from time to time.
I think that's safe to say.
But you're working together and you guys are having a successful practice. That's super cool.
Yeah, but in all honesty, for the most part, the blend is really, really good.
Yeah.
We respect each other's space.
That's big.
And Gracie is good at pushing certain things that she thinks that are relevant from the resources that she's built with you all and the relationships and all the connections she has with advisors around the country. And she's been even more successful at that from gathering information and technology and usefulness of the practice from resources than I've done in the past. So that's all wonderful things, and we have to let her grow that aspect of the business.
You get the wisdom of the sage and the
go.
new kid on the block.
There you go.
Going. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. So one of the ways that you're marketing and bringing in new prospects is you're doing dinner seminars.
Yes.
And so right off the bat, do you notice So you were doing dinner seminars before when you were solo?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So what do you all see as far as what's the reaction that you got if you think back to the first time you brought Gracie in? Like, did they react different with family? And then also, statistically, this industry is, I'm going to call it 72%. If you do the whole financial industry as a whole, it's 72% male. So to see a young, fresh face that's female on top of it would add a different dynamic. Did you see anything? Do you recall this is lightning in a bottle here?
So obviously years before at all the different dinner events that I and Cindy was always part of, for dinner events, naturally it was one presenter, if you will.
Yep.
And always wanted it to be more or larger than that. From time to time, we'd engage with guest speakers to maybe talk about Medicare just for a second, or elder law as a guest speaker from time to time. But at the end of the event, those that felt compelled to continue the conversation naturally would come up or want to talk to me and what have you. And it became real clear, which was a worry early on with Gracie's age, if you will, and being a female, that engaging her in the dinner event, it ended up making the dinner events so much more fun because we'd cut up more, or we'd kind of dig each other in a funny way during dinner
Play
events.
off each other.
That made it kind of made it more enjoyable, I think. And then, of course, who doesn't, enjoy, what appears to be a comfortable, good family dynamic,
Yeah.
And so it didn't take long, really, from the first dinner event that she started, 3 years ago with us. It didn't take long at the end of the dinner event. People come up, most of them actually, if not half, and in some cases, even today, even more than half, end up wanting to come up and talk to Gracie more than they want to talk to me. And that's never been an uncomfortable thing for me. It was just a what's the word? It was just a clarification, if you will, that yes, she can be successful in this business. And as time has gone on, Gracie gives more and more. Actually, you give two thirds of virtually all dinner events. And so, the acceptance, if you will, from our age demographic, I think has been a wonderful blend. Why? Because we can see it during the dinner event.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful thing.
What's your take?
I love the dinner events. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of what we do. And quickly going into them, the first time that I went to one, I was obviously new to this, so I wasn't really speaking. I was there just kind of spectating and seeing how it went. And I was pretty interested and impressed from the front end of just, I hadn't done anything like that before, and watching him do it and how knowledgeable he was and how he just, there was no notes. He just talked through it the whole time. He was
and the PowerPoint, but yeah.
PowerPoint needed some work, but we got that updated. But yeah, I quickly kind of just wanted to take over the events, and he kind of again was like, I need to talk sometimes too, though. It's like, okay, but yeah, I've enjoyed them. I think that I enjoy public speaking. I don't know if I'm great at it, but I would like to be great at it one day. And so I really enjoy our events and just having that opportunity to sharpen those skills. And it's kind of a good test for me. I enjoy when people ask me questions at the end, because it's a good test of, can I thoroughly answer this, and do I know the answer really well? And I've gotten to the point where, yes, I'm very comfortable at answering all questions. It's nice having that safety net of, I have him there in case there's a question that maybe I don't know.
But very rarely happens. But yeah.
And so it's been a really fun part of what we do, and I think we do well being funny. We are kind of always feeling out the crowd, and we can kind of tell if we're trying to throw in some jokes and people are just like crickets. It's like, oh, okay, this is going to be a tough one. But when it's good, it's good, and we get a lot of people that come up to us at the end and are like, wow, this was so different than anything else we've ever been to, or that it was so much more, or that they learned so much. And that's really gratifying as well, because that's our intent, is we want it to be different. We don't want it to be boring, and we want it to be really engaging. And so we really often get that feedback. And so that's just a nice feeling to know that what we're trying to accomplish is being accomplished.
I like that, answering the questions and then having another voice there, especially with the generational and gender difference. You say things differently than he would say things, and sometimes what you say is going to resonate with somebody, and sometimes they need to hear it maybe the way he might say it. But you guys have them cross-fired.
Absolutely. And, a specific topic we may be addressing from the PowerPoint at the dinner event, and, if Gracie's discussing that point and that topic, I may, in some cases, when she finishes, give a different perspective of that same subject that, may resonate with these folks here, or Gracie's version resonated with them. More events during the year.
Great point.
So, yeah.
All right. I'm going to hone the conversation. So now let's talk about how the two of you do dinner seminars, how you do an actual event. And so, let's just start ahead of time. And let's talk about how marketing. How are you marketing this thing? Are you doing old school mailers? Are you doing digital, picking up the phone?
Go ahead.
We are doing mailers. We previously have used Facebook campaigns. That's what we did for the longest time. And we would supplement that with some mailers here and there. Facebook has kind of proven to not be super effective for our market anymore. I think Facebook is so just kind of overused now that it's no longer a good tool for us to use by itself. And so
I think we overused it for a long period of time. I think in our market we're at fault at that.
Yeah,
But
we
anyway,
might have just burnt that out. But we're now using mailers, which are much more effective but much more expensive.
They sure are.
So
aren't
that's
they?
limiting also on the number of events we can do throughout the year as
Cost.
the cost for mailers. But they're effective, and they've made a huge difference, I think, as far as the quality and the net worth of prospect that we're bringing in.
Do you rotate topics, or do you keep something?
We rotate mailers as far as the style of the mailer. I do think that our topics are pretty all-encompassing. We haven't used very specific topics like only taxes or only
Cast a
Social
wider net.
Security. We kind of touch on all things retirement, but that's something that we actually talked with the marketing team yesterday about, that we might start focusing our mailers and our events on specific topics to capture people instead of maybe being too broad.
And it might allow
Good challenge.
And it might allow us to be able to, instead of, in our market, you can't just mail to the same people time and time again. But then again, we've only got so many qualified attendee demographic to mail to. So being able to change out more our direct mail piece with specific different content to draw will be a good thing. So
Classroom style or rounds? How do you like to set people up?
We always prefer rounds.
Why?
I don't know. I don't. It feels more formal that way, less institutionalized would be my thought off the cuff. But I think we've just always done rounds because we've always done rounds.
Yeah, and of course at CHAR, which is the Springfield venue, they're really high end. It's our Ruth Chris, if you will, of the Springfield market area. CHAR. Oyster and Steakhouse is a phenomenal venue.
Promotional considerations
There
paid
you
to
go,
CHAR.
yes.
So
Yeah.
if CHAR wants to sponsor
Yes.
the show or the
Yeah.
Ganns,
Yes.
there you go.
Give us a discount on those dinner
Or
events.
comp our next event, yes. We use rectangulars in there because it's a smaller room. So, but we can-
rectangular
more
classroom style?
Yes, more classroom style.
But people are sitting on just one side?
One side only.
Okay.
And when we're using rounds, excuse me, everyone still has to be facing us. We're only using half of the round table. Everyone, so we're seating 4 to 5 people to the big round table because obviously everyone, needs to be facing us.
What does size look like as far as attendance then? If you're doing that, that must be a much bigger room.
It is
It
much
is.
bigger. We could easily fit 34. When we do multiple events with each campaign.
Sure.
So in today's world, it's hard to get 34. We get it in the fall season. We get it in the first part of the year.
Yeah.
But our normal count there is 26, which is a good turnout for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, somewhere
But
in
it
the
could
20s.
it could fit more, and then with CHAR, 26 is way too tight, and we normally like to be at around 22, 23 at the most because their venue room just is limited to that.
Do you use microphones, lavaliers, or is it just natural voice?
We are loud talkers. We do not need microphones.
Yeah, we don't. Now, of course, we're using in the ceiling audio speaker systems in each of the venues. We're introducing the Chateau at the lake to kind of complement with Keter instead of just using Keter all the time down there. Next month in May, we're starting the Chateau. But all the venues that we do, because in our PowerPoint there's two or three different whiteboard videos that you all have done for us. So that's running through the sound system. But yeah, unfortunately, Gracie and I don't need microphones. So
Do you, when you go, as far as tech goes, so you're bringing your laptop, do you bring a projector or is everything provided?
Projectors provided. Some venues have their own laptop that they want you to pull things up on, and other venues we bring our own laptop.
and drop down screens.
Yeah.
Do you carry a backup to the projector and stuff?
Well, no, we used to though, but we've now learned because of the cost. A good point, and something we started last year was. We spend so much, it's such a large investment in today's world to fund one of these events. And we go to all the trouble of our checklist and everything that we have to manage. And one of the things that we added last year was
checklist. We're going to talk about
for
that.
each one of our venues is, they want to know 3 days out of what our count is. And they're pretty firm on those counts. And so at the same time, they're forcing us into what they require from us. We're giving them our counts, if you will, but we're also letting them know we need you to verify sound, audio and video and confirm back for us that everything is 100% working, in this email. And so kind of holding them accountable, because a couple of times last year we were still able to function, but we ended up with some technical issues that we just don't want to deal with. And you're trying to be in the right mindset for a dinner event, and then you get there
It's very stressful.
And golly, their audio system isn't working or whatever it may be. So, yeah.
Tell me about the checklist.
You mentioned earlier of
Micromanaging.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier advisors that are so controlling over every aspect and kind of overmanage. We are over managers. more so a micromanager over here. But yes, we are very, very, very detail oriented, probably to a fault. But yeah, like he said, there's a huge investment, and sometimes you don't. Yeah. These venues, I don't think, realize that there's a cost of your venue, but do you know how much we spent to actually get these people here? And if these things aren't working, that's a huge, huge issue for us. And so, yeah, we have a pretty thorough process of managing registrants as they come in, reaching out to them multiple times between whatever time they register and the day of the event to keep them
staying in touch,
keep them engaged. We don't want them to forget that they're coming. So we spend a lot of time and energy managing all things event related, managing the registrants, managing the events, double checking everything.
And then preparation of our folders, packets, and kits, and of course the day before, printing of name tags, So Cindy helps manage a lot of that. We have a part-time person that comes in. We need to grow our staff a little bit more, which is something Gracie stays after us at
we are trying
week
to
after
hire.
week, but we do need to. And the checklist is important, but I'm sure everyone that does dinner events, they have their own checklist, because all these things have to be in place and have to fit in the kit to head to the dinner event.
Yeah, I don't think everybody has the same approach as you on the dinner events, but that does come from he's done them for so long, where there's been so much trial and error. There's been, he's seen one thing go wrong one time, and then he's going to make sure that that's now part of the checklist going forward to make sure that never happens again. So it's just those years of experience and being very thorough, sometimes overly thorough.
I think having the checklist that you all are using, it's brilliant, because the last thing you want to do is have to be worried about something at the last minute when you're trying to get into your headspace.
Well, something as simple as forgetting the charger cord to the something as elementary as that, or having done in years past, and a lot of producers that have probably experienced this as well. You get to a venue and you're ready to go, and you've got 30 participants, and I mean, after all, you've spent a fortune to get them there, and the overhead projector bulb is burnt out, and now you're having to do the entire dinner event without any of that video support.
Yeah.
It changes the whole dynamics, and it's going to change the event itself. But you got to still be able to do it, So it will occur.
The show
lifetime as well.
The show must go on, but you want the show that you want to put on.
I'm sure a lot of your other producers, again, that do dinner events, they're communicating with their venues in advance of how they want the room set up and what have you. And sometimes you get to some of the venues, and especially the new ones, the new one that for our educational event. And boy, for some reason, there are people in charge of having us set before we get there. Forgot their responsibility. So we had to light a fire, and we lit it pretty quickly. So didn't want to burn a bridge, but I mean, good grief.
It was a heck of a start to the event, and I was a couple minutes behind him, and I just thought, oh my gosh, should we just pack up and leave? I just don't think this is going to go well.
But it all worked out absolutely perfect. Again, a learning experience. Again, the purpose for the checklist. But anyway.
So tell me a little bit about before, so maybe we're a couple days out. Checklist is ready. We've gone through the checklist. Tell me a little bit about some of the different ways that you do connect with the attendees before they get there.
You want me to go?
Sure, go ahead.
So I don't know that a lot of people are doing this, but we do text communication a lot. We're not really big on emails. We do them, but that's not
easy to delete.
That's not our main mode of communication.
And nobody answers the phone anymore.
Yeah, so
why leave voicemail?
Exactly.
We do a lot of texting, and so we kind of have these different photo templates that, with whatever type of event we're doing with the logo of the venue, and so we'll send them different things once we have once they've registered and we've approved them to attend, we'll send them, this little image that says your seats are saved, and it shows like a picture of the venue, and so that's kind of letting them know that we've got you on the list. So stay tuned, and so we'll do that, and then a few days later we'll touch base with a confirmation text that's actually giving them more information about the event. We'll also mail out confirmation letters, physical letters to everybody, so that they get it that way as well.
That way they get something to feel. Kind of old school, but I think it's still important.
And then we'll always do a morning of text message as well. That's always like it's going to be a beautiful evening at the Keeter Center. We're looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah, and we don't want to overtouch people in the process. You have people that are registering a week and a half out. Then you have people that are registering, 3 days before the event. So each one of them gets touched via text, different number of times, but never to the extent of being irritating. Just kind of re-cementing that you're going to attend.
So is this on a spreadsheet? You've got to keep track of this somehow, right? How are you doing that?
I have a wonderful spreadsheet. This guy is a little computer challenged.
It was always handwritten sheets, in the past. So
little dysfunctional, but so we have a spreadsheet that I think is very thorough and very detailed and a great way to keep track of things.
It is. I agree.
So we are working on getting him comfortable with using the spreadsheet. But yes, I'm big on spreadsheets.
It's interesting. I haven't. I love spreadsheets, and I haven't had a chance to experiment with this yet. But using AI with spreadsheets, I have not crossed that, but I know that you can.
And I hear about that a lot at different events, that we've done here at Creative. Is people speaking about, are you using AI in your practice, and if so, why not?
My response is, well, I'm a dinosaur, so I don't have any need for it. But anyway.
It seems a little overcomplicated for me as well. So maybe one of these days, but it seems that's a little over my head even.
I'll let you know how it works out, because I use spreadsheets all the time.
Yeah.
So, question: have you thought about this? Because this is an old thing that I just saw. This is just top of the head here. The ringless voicemail, because people, you're right, I don't answer. A lot of times I'll just let the phone, if it rings, I'm sorry for anybody who's calling me, but if you're calling my personal number and I don't recognize it, I'm going to let it go.
Sure.
Because then I can look at the message, and the message will be transcribed on my phone.
Right.
You can look at that and see that it's blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Well, there used to be the tech, this was more popular. And gosh, I want to say like 5-10 years ago, where you have the ability to do what's called a ringless I don't know all the details, but I know that this exists.
Never heard of it. I don't
So
know.
it basically it's called a ringless voicemail, and what it does is it doesn't ring your cell phone. It just drops a voicemail into that number.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
And so what I was thinking about that, just from maybe for our purposes, is the ability to drop that in, because no one listens to it. No one picks up their phone for the most part if it's a cell phone. But I know that I will look and see like, oh, Lakeview Learning, we've got a deal on. So you can see those voicemails, and then I'll make that
We should
decision.
look into that.
That worth the price of admission today.
There you go. I got you.
And you'd be surprised how many people, I always call people after our dinner events. I'm the one always calling to, get them to schedule and all of those things. And you'd be surprised how many people don't even have a voicemail set up, which I think is, if anybody listening doesn't have a voicemail set up, you should set up a voicemail. That's crazy to me.
Well, and of course, you're younger, and Gracie's obviously a lot younger. But in my age demographic, I've learned something that we've heard from clients for so many years, and of course it gets worse in today's world, and that is all the robo and spam calls.
Yeah.
My cell phone, I literally, we remind clients that we've had for years and years that have always known my cell phone number. Please don't call my cell phone. Let's get in the habit of calling the office number.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't answer my cell phone, because I get like 33 spam or robo calls a day, and so our clients, our folks that are attending the dinner events, are getting a lot of the same thing, and so that's why we utilize text, or maybe we should consider the ringless voicemail or whatever you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's day of, and what are you doing the day of? Are you afternoon of? So I imagine the morning's probably a normal day. What about the afternoon? A little meditation? Are you working a regular day? Or are you chilling out?
Gracie will work more during that day than I will, or that Cindy and I will. I kind of like to have that downtime, not be in a stressed mode. Gracie, you'll work till 3 or 4 o'clock.
Depends on the day.
regular day?
Yeah, depends on the day.
And I used to be able to do that the days of events, but yeah, it's normally we're not going to do a lot of in-depth tasks during that afternoon in the office or midday in the office, focusing on transitioning and getting ready for the dinner event. So
Yeah. And so you just work a regular day? No, like meditation? How do you get the mind space right? Are you just ready to go?
I think I'm just ready to go. It depends on the day.
I call it youth. It's just youth, the benefit of youth.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we usually don't try to take any client appointments on those days because we're sometimes just wrapping up final tweaks on the PowerPoint. I will say there, if we're doing a updated PowerPoint, which it feels like we do a lot, we change them a lot. I will definitely make time to practice that before the events. I'll actually sit in my kitchen and take a video of myself going through the presentation.
Oh, nice.
And so depending on what needs to be done but sometimes I'll spend a couple hours of my day just videoing myself and being like, okay, I need to do that different, I need to change that. And that makes a big difference for me going into the event because I kind of already have it fresh in my mind where I can be more fluid. So sometimes that's
and
part of the process.
incorporating world events that are going on is kind of verbal topics that we're planting seeds with in our PowerPoint. The bulk of our PowerPoint is the same consistently. Now, every year we'll tweak a lot of things, but changing a few slides from time to time of things that are relative, and world events engaging in conversation seems to draw people in a little more. Instead of it just being a canned, here's who we are, here's what we do, and let's talk about this type presentation.
Being able to connect the dots of this is timeless X's and O's, but here's why. I like that. And being prepared, visualizing and practicing so that when you get up there, you're delivering the way you want to deliver.
Yeah, in a comfortable, natural, not I call it a canned format. So.
Yeah. Okay, so it's dinner's at, let's call it 6. How early are you two arriving before the event? And then what are the first couple things you do when you get there?
Go ahead.
We, as over managers, get there always an hour early, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes we really need that hour, and other times we don't. But we get our front table set up with our folders and the name tags as people check in.
Is the table inside or outside of the room you're
Depends on the venue.
Prefers inside. We prefer inside. We want to walk right inside the door, and right there's the check-in table, which Cindy normally handles that. We've got a banner outside but that's normally the case.
So when you say outside, though, it's like outside in a hallway or outside in a
Yes.
lobby kind
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah.
And so then at the Heater Center, it's
What I stand corrected. At Keeter, it's right outside the door. At Char and what will be at the Chateau, it's right inside the door. So it depends on the venue.
so you get there an hour before, which I'm a big believer of getting somewhere early, because the only thing you cannot manufacture is more time. So like if you get there and it's anarchy, you just need some time.
bet.
Okay, so you get there, you get the table set up, and then let's say like 5-10 minutes before go time. Are you as people are showing up? So you've got Cindy at the table. So you've got someone at the table checking people in. Are you two hanging around there making small talk, or are you in the green room? Are you off stage?
We
somewhere?
are usually in the actual room, standing where we would be standing to present. There are some times that I question that because there are times, people will come 20, 25 minutes early, so they're sitting in there. We do have things going on in our PowerPoint. We used to play actually some, just like some fun music videos just for
Sure.
like entertainment.
I miss that. I still think we should do that.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
we've changed now too.
Pretty hung up on the music videos. But we have changed to like trivia questions that are retirement related
Yeah.
or financial related, just to get people in that right mindset to kind of get them engaged in like the conversations we're going to be having throughout the evening.
Because the goal is we've learned over the years, the other hurdle you try to overcome, and other producers know this, is if we're going to start the event at 6, we really want everybody to be seated.
Yeah.
If we're using a choice menu or they're choosing their drinks or what have you, or it's a set menu, depending upon the venue, we want all that to be pretty much already in place and orders taken and what have you before that 6 o'clock time. So we tell everyone in our communication and with the confirmation letter, you will want to arrive 15 minutes early for this special event. And since we've started doing that, people arrive earlier, and we want that, and we entertain them while they're there. And no, we're not in a green room. Cindy may be up front at the check-in desk, but we're up there as well. People are being seated. We're welcoming them, and we're speaking with them, what have you. And then they've got the trivia questions that are being flashed
I think
from time to time.
I'm curious now.
Make it more of an event,
Yeah.
more of an enjoyable event.
Well,
so to
the other thing that serves, the other purpose that serves is there's only 2 of you. And so for those people that come in, I'm just thinking off the top, I'm going to have to ask other advisors what they're doing during that. I never have. Because you have, again, there's just the 2 of you. So if somebody's talking to you and somebody's talking to you, you may have 6 or 7 couples over here that are not being ignored, but are just sitting, and they're sitting next to somebody they don't know. Maybe they're making small talk, maybe they're not. That would definitely take some pressure off of kind of maybe what could be an awkward time.
No doubt, and of course, you learn real quickly, and everybody else knows this as well. Some people are big talkers and want to carry on lengthy conversations.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to control that in a very cordial way, and give me just a second, we'll get back with you on that, and we go say hi to someone else. So, you do the best you can.
Yeah, yeah. And I had heard from another advisor previously that he had said that for his events, he goes and sits in the car until it's like go time, and then he'll come in. I think it was a staff member or maybe his wife that does all the checking in and getting everybody settled in, and then he is kind of the star of the show that walks in at go time. And sometimes I think about that. There are times where I wonder. Other times it's not a big deal, but there are times that I wonder. Is this weird that we're standing here? Sometimes people want to engage and want to be really talkative and kind of the crowd's all talking, and that's fine at the beginning before we get started. But there are other times where I wonder if it's weird that we're just standing up here and everybody's just kind of looking at their folders and
But at the same time, we'll mention certain things, kind of housekeeping things. Or by the way, we have a couple here tonight from Northwest Arkansas that came to the event. Or how many of you all, if memory serves, that registered are from the Cape Fear area down at Table Rock Lake. So I mean, we're talking to them, and we try to make it we in our rural market, we believe, who knows if it's correct, we believe that, being as cordial and as friendly and relationship-oriented as we can while people are sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
After all, we've asked them to arrive 15 minutes early, so we stay engaged with them.
Well,
and
that's
then,
a
of
great
course,
point.
at our dinner events, it starts at 6 o'clock. Salads and rolls come out at 6:30, 6:35. We're doing our presentation still. 15 minutes, 15 some odd minutes after that, entrees are coming out. So and then, of course, desserts and coffee after that. So everyone's getting to enjoy the evening. That's our intent during our PowerPoint versus waiting until the end. So
Okay, so it'll be interesting. Maybe you'll have to try it sometime because I've talked to some other advisors, and I can think of one right off the top. Mark Roberts was on here, and that one was called
Mark, yeah.
"How I Do My Workshops." Check that out, past episode. And I know that he stands up at the front, but then I talked to Todd Wooten out of Valparaiso. That's a great episode. Him and his assistant were on, and I feel like he comes in right towards the end. But let's talk about you. So it's 6 o'clock. It's go time. Do you introduce each other? There's the two of you, so that's a different dynamics. How do you do that?
I normally start out with just welcome everyone, tell them a little bit about ourselves. Gracie is then with the clickers switching the screen to the next slide, if you will, to who we are. So we don't replicate a lot of that information. Thank you for taking time for being here tonight. And then I introduce Gracie. I've kind of gotten in the habit, which Gracie doesn't like. We'll just go ahead and mention this for the recording.
Here we
And
go.
we are no
For the
longer
record,
we
number
are
one-
no longer doing this.
No, well, I don't know that I agree with that. But anyway, that's for another conversation. But I do end up introducing Gracie. And in, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 events, Gracie is a female, number one. She is young. And I'm not sure for most people my age, when they look at Gracie, they may think she's 22 years old. Well,
I have a question, Dennis. Do you know how old I am? Guess. I want you to guess how old I am.
That sounds like a loaded.
No, it's my favorite question.
If I'm being 100% honest, which I am, because I'm just, I would figure that you are probably right around. You're probably around 33 would be my guess.
Love that. Thank you.
Okay.
You
Well, then
completely proved my point. You continue. I won this argument.
So in past dinner events, as we've kind of grown together in the process, that's been kind of my hurdle of making her more credible in my dinosaur way, and that is I'll introduce Gracie as our retirement advisor, second generation into our company.
You're good so
An
far.
equity owner in Advantage Retirement, as well as an investment advisor or advisor representative, and Gracie's 28 years old, and she's been in this practice 3.5 years. And so she doesn't like the 28. She doesn't like all that. But what I've found is, and this is just maybe my overview that's being stretched, but what I found is at the end of those dinner events, more people end up coming over to talk to her since then than was before. So I don't know if I want to give up trying to
I'm not sure
her-
I've seen the data on that. But
So
I
anyway.
think what a successful podcast because I think we just proved
Yes.
that we don't need to tell
It's not
people I'm
necessary.
28 because people already assume I'm older, which
There
is
you
the
go.
goal anyway.
Okay,
So
that's
nobody
good.
is thinking that I'm 22.
So we've accomplished and learned something today.
This has been
This is
great.
how we handle things, see? Yes.
This is good. This is good.
We handle it with me winning.
Yes.
I think you're solid up until I used to think so. I've been at different things, and maybe we were talking about this off camera. I've been to different things, and I guess as I'm getting older, I'll see somebody, I'm like, wow, they look like a kid.
Sure.
And then what ends up happening, they look young, not kid, but young. What ends up happening is they start speaking, and if they know I'm going to do it. If they know their shit, there it is. First
There you
time I
go.
cursed on the pod.
There
But
you
if,
go.
if they know what they're saying, their age immediately.
Is
My
enhanced.
my thought is when before I thought like, oh, they're young. They start talking, that's gone because it's like, oh, that thought just it's like a dust because it's like they know what they're saying, and all of a sudden whatever I was thinking age wise is just gone.
Well, then we'll
they either
get-
know it or they don't.
Yeah. So what we've accomplished, Gracie, is we will not need to mention you're 28 years old in the future.
Do you think we've accomplished it?
And then from that,
And thanks for not getting mad that I said 33.
Oh,
There you
that's
go.
actually the greatest compliment. Fun fact about Gracie is that, yes, I have always wanted to be older, and I always try to be older.
Yeah.
I am not loving usefulness. So yeah, my goal in life, can't wait to be 30. So when people guess my age 30 or over, I'm actually quite flattered because that's my goal.
Oh, well, there we go.
So from that opening slide, we go to different slides. We kind of know the order they're in, and then Gracie's talking about a specific thing. Next slide comes up. That may be Gracie's slide as well. I've noticed that they were about 4 or 5 slides down into the presentation before I get my spot again. But anyway,
So how do you
all blends really, really well. And so we have our own different perspectives, but it all blends well.
Yeah.
Gracie will be talking about let's say it's being family owned and non-captive advisors, and she'll say what she says there, and I may have a caveat thought after that, and then we're on to the next slide, and et cetera, et cetera.
So 2 questions. So 3 questions. So your slides, you're like yin and yanging, going back, panning back and forth.
We do have,
think,
we do have specific slides. We have like our little note sheet, and so we do have specific slides that we'll kind of notate. Okay, we know this one's yours to kind of take, and this one's mine.
Yeah.
I like to have most of them, but so we kind of know who's going to
Yeah.
be speaking the most on each slide. But if he has a thought on one that I'm speaking to, he'll throw in his thought, and vice versa.
Okay, so that was my second question. So when a person has a thought, because I've been in presentations, and I tend to like to do most of the talking. And so when someone interjects, how do you handle the interjection? How do you do it so it's not like awkward?
I normally wait until
for both of you though, because I'm sure you're
I
interjecting
normally
this.
wait, and it feels this way, vice versa. I normally wait until Gracie has pretty much finished what she is wanting to say about this specific subject, and then I'll have maybe an added opinion or thought. Or a lot of the times I spend more of my follow-up energy on, if we're talking about safe money strategies or what have you, or income planning. I'll come back at the end of whatever it is she's saying about that. And do you see how that could benefit you? Couldn't that be a wonderful value to you? Is this something that would be important to you? So I try to spend some of my follow-up time on kind of cementing some seeds, if you will, I call it, based upon the content that she just expressed.
So to
see if it applies to them.
So you've presented enough together that do you know when they're coming, or do you know where it's likely, or do you pause knowing that he might add something?
To be honest, I don't really know that there's a strategy to it. I think it just
it
kind of
just
happens. Yeah, if we're just talking. Yeah.
Okay, so on slides where you do the transition, when you hand off back and forth, just out of curiosity, I've seen some people do this, and I've seen some people do it really, really well. Is it a you click and you start talking, or do you do kind of a little bit of a handoff, like Mike?
I guess usually I'll do a handoff just because I'm clicking. We'll get to like the your risk tolerance slide, and I'll be like, okay, we're going to get into this and this and this here. Right. Mike, I'll let you speak to that.
Well, where are we? Oh, and Gracie gives me a hard time. Okay,
where
so
are
we're
we?
talking about. So we just in our goofy ways, we just keep it kind of fun, natural, and just let it happen the way it happens. We know what our content is. We know what we're trying to accomplish. The goal is I'm sure with everybody doing dinner events, is to make it as enjoyable. Our goal is, and maybe there's some overkill there, our goal is to make, when people go out to see a movie, or people go out on their weekend date or what have you, they want it to be an outing. They want it to be an event. And so, the reason why I always loved in prior dinner events where we did our relevant Lee Greenwood music video, or the old Alabama working 40-hour week video, or the Tom Cruise Maverick, what's her name?
This Lady Gaga music video that he just loves.
Well, because
we even took a poll
American.
One night where I was like, how many people like this music video?
Yeah, everybody loved it. But anyway.
What was the video?
The
Lady Gaga?
Yeah, it was a song from the newer Top Gun. I don't remember what it was called, though.
Oh, and it's such a phenomenal
Have you
video.
Seen the new Top Gun?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Okay.
It's so American, and it's
he
military.
Thinks it's inspiring. It's going to inspire a whole new generation.
The point we're trying to make here, in a time-limited basis, is that we're really trying to make our dinner events, whether you schedule an appointment or not,
It was worth
we
your
really
time.
would love for you to walk away, and we kind of say this at the end. We'd love the opportunity to get to know you better and add value to your life going forward. And to accomplish that, we need to continue the conversation. For those of you that have no need in that, we hope you found this evening to be truly wonderful, and maybe you'll do a Google post or what have you.
Sure.
We want our events to be really, really special and unique, not just some, gosh, we attended a seminar or a dinner event. So that's kind of our spin.
All right, let me ask you a couple X and O's questions. When people check in, name tags?
Yes.
Okay. Handwritten right at the moment or?
Typed.
They are typed ahead of time, yes.
Okay. So we...
Big enough where we can read them so we can see them, yeah.
Okay, so call to actions. As we're wrapping this thing up, not the webinar, because we got not the podcast. I got a couple more questions for you. But as you're coming to a close on the event, what is the why do you need to see you guys?
We've learned. I've recognized that Gracie does the better close to transition to scheduling an appointment than I do. I come across a little overly A-type personality, maybe a little too strong and stern. Gracie gives that softer perspective, and so I think we recognize that we're getting a better appointment commitment. But Gracie pretty much does the closing on that, and it's we're not begging for the appointment, but if things that we've discussed, certain subjects that we've discussed tonight are relevant to you, and
Or if this was new information.
Absolutely.
If we just, if you would benefit from just sitting down and maybe just getting a second set of eyes on your current plan. Second opinions are always a good thing to have.
And they schedule an appointment. There's something in the packet, I'm guessing.
So we hand out at the end. We kind of do whatever close we
Separate
do,
from
and
the
then
packet.
we'll walk through. I have a evaluation sheet up front
Yep.
that I will walk through with them because before they get theirs, because I want them to stay focused on me and stay focused on what I want them to do.
Yep.
And so we walk
Important to
through
capture them at
the
this point.
evaluation, what
Yeah.
I want them to do on the evaluation sheet, and then I explain the scheduling process of, you can pick your time, check your box, pick your time. That we also have a little calendar on the backside that shows some appointment dates over the next couple weeks that they can just circle a time and a date if they'd
that
like
we've
to do
kept
that.
available for you.
Nice.
So we'll let them know, our time slots fill up quick, so pick a time that works best for you, and I'll call you first thing in the morning, and we'll get it nailed down and put on the calendar.
And then, of course, I always have an opinion and a thought after that in my old way of thinking, and that is, folks, don't let life get in the way. Here's what we know. Tomorrow morning, we'll all wake up, and the phones will ring, the kids will want this and need that, and or work or whatever
Sure.
it is. So the things that are important to you today, at least give us an idea of when you would like to schedule, because come tomorrow, everything else will have a priority.
That's right.
So.
Nice phrase. I like the idea of not having it in their hand while you're explaining, because nothing drives me nuts more than when you, like, especially if you're presenting and they have a copy of your PDF, if you're at a
Right.
different event,
Yeah.
and all you see is people shuffle through, and it's like,
That's
no,
right.
right? Look up here. So how do
And
they?
Gracie changed that. That's something we changed. In years past, it was there for them. I was the one talking about kind of closing and how important an appointment, no cost consultation, no strings attached, et cetera, et cetera. But we started separating, saying those things before we handed out the evaluation form with the schedule, and it's made an impact, no doubt about it.
So while you're talking, who's giving out the evaluation?
Once she gets through explaining how important a client appointment could be, and we're saving, scheduling, setting aside time for you, then once she's done saying that, then Cindy hands them out to everyone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's at the close. Do you take Q&A?
Yes.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Does that happen before the evaluation or after?
After. And we'll have some times
Sometimes both.
throughout, depending on what pace we're running at and kind of seeing how involved people are or not.
If we can tell that they're not engaged,
We'll take some time to pause, intermittently throughout and be like, okay, based upon the things that we've talked about this far, let's take a couple questions. And sometimes it will be crickets and be like,
So you're doing temperature checks along the way?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We are, and we use the enticing dessert and coffee at the end. Now, folks, you got to get more engaged here. If you don't
desserts.
have questions or what have you, we're going to have the staff hold those desserts. Of course, I'm doing it in a terrible way, the way I normally do it. I can't remember exactly how I say it, but we kind of make it in a funny way to keep people engaged along the way. We've learned that in our market during the dinner event, if they're not engaged as we're going through these different things, and you can see them writing things down or saying something to their partner or what have you, if they're just sitting there, we kind of need to pause and let's get them engaged.
Okay, so you pause. What do you do to get them engaged? You started. You're doing a temperature check. Crickets. Are you going to switch up the next section, or are you going to switch up what you're going to say? What do you?
Not necessarily. Sometimes we'll make a comment at that time if nobody's being being shy at first with the questions, and usually people do warm up with the questions as we go, so it's usually not that much of an issue. But sometimes if people don't have anything to say, he'll try to make his dessert joke or whatever might come up, or I'll be like, wow, I guess we've just been so thorough so far that we don't have any questions yet, and then we'll just kind of move on.
I've seen an advisor one time. I've seen an advisor do this where they get to a point when they do the temperature check, if they're not getting anything, they'll say, I'm going to get this wrong, but they'll say something along the lines of like, usually at this point people ask us this question, and then try and engage that way. I don't know if that would work. I mean, everybody's style is different, but it works for her.
Yeah.
But okay, so you and then also shameless plug for another podcast. Todd Wooten was on here. He's in Valparaiso, and he was talking about some of the. He's such a sweetheart. He was talking about some of the tricks, techniques that he uses, some different crowd cadence, back and forth Q&A deals that he does to get them engaged if they're just crickety. But it's so interesting how it goes, how everybody does it differently. So you do your temperature checks, you keep going, you withhold the coffee and treats. Rude. Just kidding. You get to the end. When it comes to Q&A, so this is another interesting thing. Do you have them stay in place, or do you both get stuck with the people form a line to talk to you? Well, how do you handle the Q&A?
It really depends. It's kind of different every time. There are times where people will just start, raising their hand, and that kind of sets the precedence. That was okay. That's what we're doing, and so people will continue raising their hand. And there's sometimes that doesn't start that way, and people will just get up and start shuffling around, and they will want to come up to us. But I think generally we do get a lot of questions at the end of the night. There are some times where we kind of have to be like, okay, well, we gotta kind of pack up now, guys. They're gonna kick us out of here. But we do get a lot of involvement usually at the end of the night.
And of course, the goal isn't always to fully answer a long length question with with a long length answer.
Because you don't want to.
That's something. Let's schedule a time and let's kind of dig into that a little deeper, because obviously your situation, it's not a canned answer. Your situation is unique, and so let's schedule a time to talk about that. And then you can see that Betty and Joe over here are wanting to have a conversation, and we're so glad you joined us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation and getting to know you better. And so we walk over and talk to Betty and Joe.
So how do you, as you're standing there on those nights when there's a lot of Q&A, how do you get out of there? Because you don't want to, why give all the answers?
It happens from time to time.
How do you do it? What do you do?
I'll usually do my silly thing, and that is we promised you that we'd be done and out of here by 7:45. It's 7:45. Y'all head home. We're done.
Nice.
In a funny way.
Yeah.
In a funny way. But it doesn't happen that often.
It really doesn't. I feel like usually we're not having to end the questions per se. Sometimes we'll just get caught up there with like one specific person that kind of just wants to verbalize everything to us and kind of have their appointment right there.
Yep.
And so that's sometimes the main hurdle, to kind of keep it vague and be like, let's I'll give you a call tomorrow. Let's schedule a time so we can sit down and look at your situation a little closer and kind of try to wiggle your way out of that.
Okay, so we're gonna circle back to something that happens day of, but evening, you guys get a good night's sleep. It's the day after. Tell me just 10,000 feet the process after.
So I take
D-Day plus one.
all the evaluation sheets and all the people that wanted to schedule. I'm always super eager to give them a call. Usually between like 9:30 and 10, I'll get that
You're
started.
like right on it.
Yeah.
I think it ought to be later still, but that's the time she prefers. I think it should be after 10 o'clock, but it doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that. It is fascinating because we have these lenses that we view things on.
Sure.
And I will tell you, as a guy who grew up in North Dakota, Mountain Time Zone, we had to be home when the news came on in the evening.
Sure.
And so to me, if my phone rings after 9, it would be 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock down here. If my phone rings at 10 o'clock or later, rude. It's just the way I grew up.
In the evening.
In the evening,
yes,
yeah. But so we have these things that like frame our brains. But okay, so you're right on them.
yes.
So we're calling first, boom, the people that said they want an appointment, you're confirming.
Yes, I'm confirming that appointment. We've actually started this year doing in our dinner event folders. In the back, we put in an extra sheet that is your financial snapshot. And so for those that
A little data.
do want to schedule, I walk through, getting their time set up and everything like that. And then I'll say something along the lines of, do you have your folder from the dinner event nearby perchance? And I'm shocked that everybody, even if they don't have it, they always get up and go get it. They're like, oh, let me just go grab it really quick. I wasn't
That's
really
good.
sure
That's
how
good.
that transition would go at first.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, yeah, let me grab it. And then I'll walk them through, okay, on the left-hand side, you'll see a sheet called your financial snapshot. If you'll take some time to fill out that sheet with some round numbers and collect any recent statements that you have on existing accounts.
Round numbers, that's smart. That's a good
that
phrase.
way we can get, and that's just kind of like the spiel. That way we can get a general idea, a quick snapshot of kind of where you're at, and then better be able to address what you're trying to accomplish. And
And of the questions you're going to have during your free consultation, we can actually see what it is your questions are about.
And they bring that in, or are you collecting that data over the phone?
they bring it in, and that was another thing that was new this year that I wasn't really sure how that would work. We had a lot of trouble last year with people bringing in information, bringing in statements, and
Yeah,
it
100%.
kind of made a worthless first appointment where
Yeah.
then we're still needing to collect so much information to actually do our jobs properly.
Yeah.
And so we weren't really sure if people would feel really comfortable with filling all this out. But it's been really successful actually, and people have been really good
And
about
yours
bringing
kind
it
of
in.
my version of creating a little skin in the game. If we're
Yeah, yeah.
scheduling an appointment, you need to be engaged. Without saying this, you need to be engaged in the process and part of the fact-finding or solution conversation that you're going to want to talk to us about. And so, anyway, I think that's so important.
That phrase that you said there, that's like $1 million phrase, though. You said just round numbers.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get
Wow.
caught with the thought. I think about when you said that, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, because you get caught with like, well, what's the exact balance of that? It's
Too
like,
much of a
it's
worksheet. Yeah, and they're like, oh, this is a lot of trouble
just
now. I
round
have
numbers.
to look up all these specific numbers. And so I go through that process with them. I remind them, make sure you bring that with you. Bring your folder back with you with all that information for your first appointment. I let them know that I'm going to send them a confirmation text message here shortly so that confirms. That also has a photo template that we have on there that's kind of a checklist of reminder what to bring. So I'm now reiterating to bring statements, bring financial snapshot.
Works well.
Has like our address on it, and then in the text I'll say your appointment is confirmed for so-and-so time. Please respond with yes. We look forward to seeing you. And that's then they're set. I get their folder prepped and they're ready to go.
Now, let's talk about the other ones.
The ones that didn't want to schedule.
The ones that did not schedule.
So with those, I've kind of transitioned. We had a type of evaluation that once had a box on it that said, no, not at this time.
To schedule.
So they had an option to say, no, we're not interested. I've taken that box away. That was a suggestion from somebody at Creative One that was like, take that away. Be hard to say no to and easy to say yes to. So I've really leaned into that, and that's actually been really great advice, because even those people that didn't want to schedule and didn't pick a time, I'm still going to call them and see if I can convert them, or just say, I know that we went over a lot of different topics last night. I know we had a lot of good conversation. We would love the opportunity to make the most of your time spent at the dinner event and sit down and further discuss those topics and how they can affect you in your retirement or something to that effect. And that's
Would that
I've been
be
able
important to you?
I've
Would that
been
be
able to
important to
create
you?
some conversions from people who originally didn't want to schedule and did get them to schedule after all.
So then there's the third group then, that you've had that conversation, and they're like, nah. Do you all drop them into a drip tickle file? Tickle file, so old school, but do you still drop them
Sounds
into
a little weird. Yes, so we do use Redtail. That was a big learning curve
Yeah.
for our office last year. But I really live in Redtail, and it's been, I think, a wonderful tool for
It has been,
for
no doubt.
for us in keeping those things organized. And so,
No doubt.
just to backtrack a tad, the day before the event, all of the people who are registered and approved for the dinner event to attend, I already have them the day before in Redtail, so that when I'm calling the
Nice.
day after, I already have my list of who is supposed to be attending that event. And so the day after, if they're a no-show, I can have that categorized that way.
Yeah.
Or if they do schedule, I can categorize it. And for the ones that don't want to schedule, can't convert them, I'll just make sure their information's in Redtail, and they'll be part of a marketing prospect group, and then we just kind of leave them.
And then midway through the following week, we will send a follow-up text, thank you for attending, and then a template that just kind of reiterates, we're here for you. There are going to be things that come up in your retirement plan, additional questions, thoughts, what have you, and please don't hesitate to give us a call. So that following week, we do touch them again. So.
Nice. Something that you thought was going to be maybe a change that you thought we'd make, we being,
Internally.
but that would be made that didn't work out, that you thought this would be big, and
Okay,
it
yes.
was peanuts.
Yes.
But then the flipsy doozy, which was something that you thought, oh, that's ridiculous, and it just took off.
So, implementing Redtail and different programs was something that was very new to them being Mike and Cindy there in the office.
Added technology.
They're not very technologically advanced people, but I really thought, I was very confident. I was like, I can teach anybody anything. Like, I've got a plan. I made guides. I was like, I'm ready to go. I've got a strategy. We're all going to be super well versed in this, and I went into it super confident. Definitely got a little beat down along the way of that one. That was a hard transition.
was.
They're able to use it in not at full capacity, but at capacity enough. So we finally made it through that. But that was was a much larger undertaking. At this, like we did Redtail, and then at the same time we implemented Microsoft Teams. We also changed our calendar system.
Oh yeah, you're making some changes.
But they were all things that really, really needed to be done for efficiency.
We agree.
But I guess I just wasn't aware of where the computer skills really ended. But
Well,
we've come a long way.
Yeah. Well, and because in my world, all that time to get your hands around all, Redtail and all
Sure.
the usability of it and the comfort level in it and Microsoft and all this other stuff, essentially it took our priorities and our focus from being productive producers to getting a more operable office.
Yeah.
Which is necessary, but there's a give and take. And so we saw this last year in our production. There were other things that affected our production, but the year before we were at 10 million, and last year we suffered immensely. But there were other reasons why. But I've always been producer-oriented, paper files and a good file system and, handwritten names on the files and all the documents that were needed was all that you needed when it came servicing time.
Yep.
But is Redtail and all this technology so much more user-friendly? Absolutely. But it comes at a cost, and that's what we've learned.
Laying the foundation
Yes.
from being a producer to a practice. Yeah. Okay, so something then, the flipsy doozy then, something that you thought was going to be, this is going to be awesome, and it's like, that didn't work.
I think it was the opposite. I think the flipsy doozy was the Redtail was the thing that didn't work.
You're right. Something you thought was that's silly and it worked
And
well.
that did
you're
work.
Right. You're right.
Let's switch to the positive. I don't know. Maybe I'm like too optimistic, where I just think everything's gonna work. Like, we'll make it work. But I do think the dinner events was something that works so well, and at the beginning I didn't quite know how, because I'd never done anything like that.
Yeah.
and wanting to make sure that, of course, I need to be, if I'm speaking, I need to be very thorough and know exactly what I'm speaking about. And that's something that I had hesitations for in the beginning because I think I just had high expectations for myself on that, and that is something that I think that we've merged together really well on that, and that's definitely a strong point for us. That's really taken off is just the ease and the enjoyment of our dinner events, and we really think that they're good.
And we don't have time for today, but the other thing that in that question that I think has been impactful is how we've blended and transitioned in our appointment processes and our communication. We 99% of the time we're both in the client appointments. And we want to be. Gracie leads most of those client appointments now in the direction of gathering information and pulling information out of a client, a prospective client that they're wanting to ask questions on and things that are relative to them. And I have my opinions and my thoughts as they're discussing these things. And so that's probably one of the most inspiring things that I've seen change and adapt is our appointments and the efficiency of our appointments for the client's benefit. So.
Well, we're going to have to. We're definitely having you both back because we've got lots of things to talk about. So I thank you both for being on here. This has been a very fascinating conversation, and for everybody else that's out there. If you get a chance, would love it if you would follow the show or subscribe to it. That way you are in the know anytime we put out a new episode. You can catch us. You can watch us on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. A lot of people don't know you can watch on those. But you can listen to us anywhere. We're even on like iHeartRadio. So if you have any suggestions for the show, any topics you'd like to see covered, put them in the comments. I read the comments. Any constructive criticism, glad to read them and respond. And any just general criticism, I'll look at that too. So thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Dennis, thank you, sir.
It was fun.
That's a wrap.